Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here to talk about Golem, who is a sneaky pick for ADV. Um, Shoutouts to Shiny Ledian for kind of inspiring this video by talking about Clash Royale. I should say, Clash Royale is a game that I really enjoyed playing, but I just can't play it anymore because of like how pay to win it kind of has become. You have to basically buy the pass every month for like, what is it, like $12 a month. I just can't afford to play it anymore. So I did love the game though, and Sneaky Golem is a very funny Clash Royale meme. If you're not familiar with it, that's okay. We're still gonna go through this as if it's just regular Pokemon. As for the viability rankings, as it probably comes to a shock to no one, the Golem is not here. It's pretty far, in fact, from being ranked, because according to the ADV Aggregate Viability Survey from 2014, I think a new one is going to come out sometime soon, so look out for that. Maybe I'll be on... No, I'm not going to be on it. Golem was not ranked at all by any of the players who were surveyed. There are 75 Pokemon ranked. Rhydon, who is going to be an extremely comparable Pokemon to Golem, was 71st. So that kind of... Yeah, I know, Golem, you're shocked that that's how it played out, but that's just how it is. Yeah, we'll talk a lot about Rhydon and Golem in this video. This is not me saying that I'm not doing a video specifically on Rhydon at some point. I probably will, but maybe not for a little while. In any case, Golem is quite surprised by this fact, but I want to know from you guys, how much do you think that surprise factor plays into winning a game? You can keep this centered around ADV, or you can make this more broadly competitive Pokemon in general. My sort of thought is that it sometimes matters. It matters, but I think it matters more particularly when you're playing something strange, like something that not very many people have seen before. When you're playing a very standard team, I don't think surprise factor is very much a factor at all in winning, but in any case, I do think there's something to be said, but I'm interested to see what you all have to say. Let's talk about the Rock Ground dual type. So Rock Ground is a staple of early Kanto, in particular if you're familiar with the first gym leader, Brock. He's got Geodude, he's got Onix. Those are both Rock Ground types. Granted, there aren't quite as many Rock Ground types as you might anticipate if you go and look at the rock grounds that are legal in up to Gen 3, but they are pretty well represented, at least early on in your red and blue playthrough, so that's good to know, I guess. To me, it seems like the rock ground type was kind of designed to give Squirtle and Bulbasaur players an easy first gym leader. I don't know if they were thought too much about in a competitive context. Granted, I don't think anything was really thought about in a competitive context, going all the way back to RBY. But we're going to analyze this type anyway. So I have this chart here that is going to explain the offensive and defensive capabilities of Rock Ground. We have them kind of split up into three areas. On the left will be the Rock type. That's how it contributes. On the... or did I say the right? I meant the left. On the right will be ground, and in the middle will be both. So let's start first by looking at the offensive utility of the rock ground type. So rock is going to be super effective on flying, bug, and ice. Ground is super effective on electric, steel, poison, rock, and both are super effective on fire. Look at how broken ground is as a type, by the way. Five types that you were super effective against, and like steel is like a very good one to have a super effective hit on. So like, I don't know, and earthquake of course is one of the best moves in the game. So like this is a lot that they gave to the ground type, and people wonder why ground is such a broken offensive type in many of the generations. But in any case, this actually hits a quite large array of Pokemon. I should note that Fire, the two OU ranked Fire types are Flying, which are going to be immune to Ground, which we're going to talk about in a second. So Rock is probably more taking that Fire coverage there, or taking the coverage to hit the Fire types. But I will say, though, that if you end up against something like a Houndoom team, then you have the option to go for both, which is really nice for making your mid-grounds a lot easier to decide between. As for what we're not hitting very effectively with these Pokemon, these types, Rock is resisted by Fighting, Ground, and Steel. So some some decently common types. Fighting not quite as common as the other two, but there's a lot of fighting types being used nowadays. And then Ground is unable to hit Flying type at all. Flying is completely immune. And then Grass resists. And then just think about this, though. 5 types that you hit for super effective. Grass is your only resist. Flying, yes, the immunity, that is big, that matters, but like, damn, Ground type got it so good. But I want to note that there is no type that resists both. So that means that Rock and Ground together is pretty good coverage for hitting a wide array of Pokemon. In fact, the only 2 Pokemon that really have any sort of dual resistance into the Rock Ground coverage are Flygon and Claydol, thanks to their ability to levitate. But that's not of much concern to us right now. It'll be more concerning when we're playing with the Rock Ground type Golem, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's talk about the defensive type now, or the defensive utility of this type combination. So, Rock is going to be hit for super effective by Fighting, Ground, and Steel. Ground is going to be hit super effective by Ice, and both are hit super effective by Grass and Water. What that means is that you're going to be taking 4 times damage from those. So this is actually pretty bad. All things considered, you're getting hit by some of the most common types in the format. Ice is a really common coverage type. Fighting, really common coverage. Ground, extraordinarily common with Earthquake. And then Hidden Power Grass is one of the most common hidden power types. So because of Swampert's prevalence in the tier, all the Rock Ground types are suffering from that as well. Water is a pretty common attacking type as well, particularly with the bulky Waters, which are pretty commonly on teams, and very good at switching into physical attackers, which Rock Ground is a dual physical coverage. As for Steel, Steel is not as concerning because the only Pokemon that really exists that uses Steel coverage is Metagross. I mean, there are a handful of other Pokemon that could, like Iron Tail from Steelix or Hidden Power Steel from like Skarmory, but in general, Steel weakness basically is just Metagross weakness, which frankly, it's not good to be weak to Metagross, but I mean, there are a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Metagross. Blissey might as well have a Steel weakness with how strong that Meteor Mash is into it. So, but the rest of these types, very, very devastating. You picked probably some of the worst types to be weak to in the entire format. And then as for types that are not very effective into this dual type combo, Rock is going to resist Normal, Flying, and Fire, which is kind of interesting. Normal is a pretty good type to resist in this generation. This is probably the last generation where Normal is like a particularly good offensive type. As we get more coverage moves for more Pokemon, Normal is going to get phased out of kind of being used. Not to say that Normal is a completely terrible type in modern generations, but it is definitely not as good an offensive type as it used to be. So being able to resist it with Rock is actually kind of valuable. It means that you don't have to stack up on Steel types or Ghost types if you want to have a normal resistance, if you want something that's good into, say, Snorlax. Now, that being said, Rock shares the weaknesses with Steel in ground and fighting. So Snorlax's common coverage moves like Earthquake and Focus Punch are still going to hit you for super effective. So it's not a great niche as compared to Steel. But maybe if you already have Steel types and you want another normal resist, then you might want to look at a Rock type Pokemon. Flying, good to resist flying. You're not being able to hit it, but you're not going to get hit by it super effective or even neutral. So that's kind of good. Or I should say with your ground type. Your rock type, of course, you can handle flying very well. And then resisting fire is actually pretty decent. Fire is a really common coverage type. A lot of mixed attackers have Fire Blast or Flamethrower, and being able to switch in on that is not bad. Now, granted, most of the mixed attackers who have that Fire Blast coverage are probably also going to have another special attacking type that is going to hit you for a lot of damage. But, maybe they're a physical leaning Pokemon. Maybe it's like a Snorlax that is using Fire Blast instead of Earthquake. Or maybe it's a Salamence who is mostly physical, but they're going to use Fire Blast instead, again, of Earthquake, so that their coverage is something like HP Flying, Rock Slide, Fire Blast. In that case, you actually are pretty good into those Pokemon, but those are pretty niche scenarios, so I wouldn't bank on it too much. Ground is going to resist Rock, and it's going to be completely immune to Electric. Once again, ground, like, if we're talking single types and we put them in a tier list, at least for Generation 3, ground is probably top 2. Like, it's an incredibly fortunate type, both defensively and offensively. So, like, holy hell, this is really good. And then both of these resist poison, which means that you have a quad resistance to poison. Now, that if you were going to pick a type to be quad resistant to, poison is probably the least consequential because poison coverage is so uncommon in the tier. So I don't think that that's great. And then unlike Gengar, who has that quad resistance, you are not a poison type yourself, so you're not immune to toxic. So that's not great, but I mean, it's something, I guess. You can switch into a Weezing, maybe. In any case, here are our rock ground types. Okay, before anybody corrects me in the comment section, yes, I know that Rhydon is technically ground rock type, but I don't give a fuck, so... Yeah, I know, I don't swear that much in my videos, do I? Maybe I do, I don't know, but I felt like that was appropriate to say it there. I actually I hesitated a little bit. I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that word, but we're saying it. We're all adults here, unless you're not, in which case, why are you watching my videos? But yeah, I have Pupitar and Onix here, who are not even fully evolved Pokemon, but like that's the level of rock ground types that we have in the tier. Did you expect it to be this little? Like, I kind of like, with how much Geodude and Onix are in Gen 1, and then Rhydon as well, like, I kind of just figured, like, a lot of the rock types were rock ground, but, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that they ditched this sort of concept going into Gen 2 and 3, because they already had so many. But Pupitar's there. It's kind of cool. Don't use Pupitar, by the way. It's not good. Maybe an NU or something. I haven't played it. I haven't played any of the lower formats, though, so I don't really know. But let's compare Rhydon and Golem, because these are going to be the two that are going to draw the most comparison. They have the same type combo. They both have Rock Head as an ability. Their other ability, in the case of Rhydon, it's Lightning Rod. In the case of Golem, it's Sturdy. Both are completely useless in singles. Yes, Lightning Rod, I know, in modern generations gives you an electric immunity and you get a special attack boost, but that's not how it works in Gen 3. In Gen 3, all it does is if it was a double battle and they attacked your partner, it redirects the move to Rhydon. And then Rhydon, of course, would not be affected by it because it's a ground type. But I don't even think it gets the special attack boost. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically pointless. So let's take a look at their stats. Rhydon is going to have slightly better HP, whereas Golem is going to have slightly better defense and special defense. I think how this sort of balances out is that technically Golem takes special attacks a little bit better, but I think Rhyhorn takes physical attacks a little bit better. It's pretty close either way, though, so it's not really that much of a consequence. Attack, Rhydon has 130, whereas Golem has 110. Both of these are pretty good, but you would love to have 130 if you could. I know that Golem actually got buffed, I think going into Generation 6 or 7, don't recall which one, where it got 10 more base attack. So it's actually a little bit better, but not, I mean, obviously it's still really bad in modern generations, because that defensive type, oh my god, is really bad, but, and it's also really slow. But, yeah, it would have been nice to have that here. Unfortunately, it does not. Golem, I guess, has slightly better special attack. Not that that really matters, because Rhydon definitely gets the better special coverage. In fact, if they swapped, like, that actually might be of some consequence for Rhydon, but probably not, because 55 is still really low. And Golem has 5 more base speed, and that seems like it wouldn't be very consequential. I keep saying that word. Zets, I know you're going to comment about me repeating my words here. All right. What can I say? I have the vocabulary of a Zoomer. In any case, oh, Zets, do not comment that. Do not comment that again. Jesus. 5 extra base speed is, you would think, is not that relevant, but when we're talking about Pokemon this slow, this means that Golem has a little bit more capability to outspeed some other slow Pokemon. Like, it won't need as much investment to outspeed things like Swampert and Blissey and Tyranitar. So, like, that is actually, like, pretty good. Whereas Rhydon is probably going to need more. Like, it's so slow, in fact, that you're probably not even going to run any speed on it. So, kind of matters. I would say, overall, I think Rhydon's spread is a little better. Mostly because the attack is higher, but, like, Golem's not completely outclassed in this regard. But let's talk about their movesets here. So, for Rhydon, I should say. I keep getting those mixed up. I don't know why. You have Curse, Megahorn, Swords Dance, and Thief as some pretty good moves. That's pretty relevant. Curse is good to boost your attack and your defense, but you could also go for Swords Dance, which probably I would recommend to have a really strong wall breaker for your rock ground type. Really good at busting through some slow defensive teams, so good to know. Megahorn is good coverage. It means that you don't have to commit your hidden power to Bug to hit Celebi. I don't know if you would do that much with your hidden power type otherwise. Like, would you run hidden power Ghost and Megahorn on the same Rhydon set? Probably not. I guess maybe if you were going for Choice Band, that could be a thing. But Megahorn is so much stronger, though, and you're going to secure one-shot kills on Celebi that a lot of other Pokemon can't do with hidden power Bug coverage even. So keep that in mind. Some maybe usable moves on Rhydon, I wanted to say Rhyhorn again, are Rain Dance, Thunder, Thunderbolt, and Reversal. I don't know, again, if you would even bother running a special move on Rhydon. I didn't include Blizzard, which it gets, whereas Golem does not, but, like, again, I don't know if you would use those. Your special attack is so low, but maybe you do. You need a move to hit Skarmory, you could do that. Rhydon does have access to Fire Blast, but Golem also has access to Fire Blast, so I don't know, I guess if that is a consideration again. But I bet if you do the calc, probably Rock Slide is going to do more damage, so I don't think it really mattered. Maybe it doesn't, because Skarmory's got really high defense, but I'm not going to bother calcing it. You can calc it yourself and let me know in the comments if you so care to do so. But Golem, it has some of its own moves here. It's got Explosion. That's pretty good. It also has Block and Defense Curl and Rollout. But I mean, that's basically it. Like, you don't get any good boosting moves with Golem, or at least any that boost your physical attack. You don't get Bulk Up. You don't get Swords Dance. You don't get Curse. So that's not good. You also don't have any cool coverage moves that Rhydon doesn't get. Not even like Surf. Like, Rhydon gets Surf. That's kind of cool. Not that you would ever use it, but yeah, I don't know. But Explosion is pretty notable. That is a pretty solid move for making some progress, so we're going to keep that in mind as we go on to talk about the standard Golem set, which standard is like in heavy quotation marks. This is the first thing that you see if you look at Golem in the OU tier for ADV. It says, Golem shouldn't be considered for most serious teams, and when it should, Rhydon should be considered first, and Metagross way before that. Golem does have two things going for it over Rhydon, slightly better speed and access to Explosion, which we talked about. Explosion can be a game changer when played correctly, but in most instances you'll want a more consistent Pokemon in Golem's place. Generally, I would agree with all of this, but that's the thing, is we're not going to play Golem on a serious team, we're playing it on a funny team, okay? Because we get to call it the sneaky Golem team. But in any case, here's the spread that they suggest here. You have some kind of interesting coverage. I mean, not really. It's basically the same coverage that every rock type is wanting to use. But should note that you do have Rock Head as an ability for Double Edge, so that's kind of okay. And then, yeah, I mean, just about as good as you're going to get for any rock type using a choice band, so this is nice. With the given EVs, Golem can survive an Earthquake from choice-banded Salamence or +1 Tyranitar, and outspeed Blissey and Swampert. The remaining EVs are invested in attack and supplemented by an Adamant Nature for maximum damage output. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. Like, this is the platonic ideal of choice-band rock types. So let's see if I have any sort of edits to this sort of set, and I guess I do. I know I do, because I made the slide, but we're going to talk about it right now. So basically, I've sort of restructured the defensive investment into this Pokemon and taken a little bit out of the attack stat so that I can get some more speed. The speed is not very consequential. Outspeeding Blissey is probably the biggest benchmark that you can go for, but I do think it's kind of interesting that Golem can get past things like minus speed Metagross and your non-minus speed nature Tyranitar and Swampert without needing like super duper crazy investment. I mean, 136 is pretty hefty, but it's not so bad. I should note that we literally outspeed zero speed Tyranitar. Most Tyranitar are going to put the 4 remaining into speed, which means now we're actually speed tying. So things like, what's it called? Pursuit Tar, some BKC Tar. We're going to be speed tying them. So you could try to find 4 more EVs to make sure that we guarantee outspeed Tyranitar, but like this set is so perfectly constructed that we need every single point in order to get certain benchmarks. For example, Earthquake, we're gonna one-shot kill every Tyranitar. We're gonna kill bold or non-bold Jirachi sets. I guess technically they could run like 252 HP, like 200 defense to get past this Golem, but most of the time, if they're running that much defense, they're going to be a bold nature. and then 252 HP Metagross. So, the thing is, if you run any less attack than this, it is not a guaranteed OHKO on 252 HP Metagross. So, we're already investing the speed to outspeed the minus speed nature Metagross, which is usually going to be mixed. And mixed is usually going to run 252 HP. So, like, I would rather be a very concrete revenge killer on that particular set than to have a little bit more speed to get past Tyranitar, I guess. I mean, maybe it matters though, because Pursuit Tar a lot of times runs HP Grass, and if it's a speed tie and they're going for HP Grass, you're going for Earthquake, then it's just a 50-50 toss-up who's going to kill who. So I guess that maybe is of consequence. You could maybe argue that that's worth getting a little bit of extra speed there for. So, I mean, this is your life. You're going to be the one playing this team, maybe, on ladder. So you decide what you want to do to adjust these EVs if you would like. And certainly you can go a lot slower and then with more attack investment if you want a stronger explosion. But Rock Slide is going to basically OHKO everything that is weak to it. There are maybe a few exceptions, like maybe Gyarados could live it, but like in essence, Rock Slide is just going to be your click into anything that's weak to it. I also want to mention that we're going to 3-hit KO Skarmory. That's pretty relevant because that means that, like, Skarmory, if it's going to click spikes 3 times in a row versus our Golem, it's going to trade its own life for it, assuming that you can hit all your Rock Slides. Big assumption, I know, but it's good to know. Granted, if Skarmory goes for Protect, it can afford itself a little bit of extra healing, in which case it can get out of 3-hit KO range. But, I mean, you can leave it pretty low with your Golem, so that's good to know. And then HP Bug is going to OHKO any non-bold Celebi. In fact, even Utility Celebi, which is bold, has a chance to die to the Hidden Power Bug if it switches in. Do not switch to your Golem to try to KO Celebi. If they have a Grass-type move, you're dead. And if they don't have a Grass-type move, they're switching. So, like, don't do that. But we will 2-hit KO Claydol and Starmie. Starmie can sometimes be one-shot, but not always. So, keep that in mind. Explosion is not quite going to OHKO Skarm, and anything else that is in that sort of defensive realm, like Metagross, Fortress, you're probably not killing those either, but pretty much everything else in the tier is just going to die to this explosion. It is a really strong explosion, all things considered. And then with this defensive investment, this sort of restructuring here, we're still going to live a Choice Band Earthquake from Mence, Meta, and Tyranitar. And we'll live unboosted Meteor Mash from Metagross most of the time. If it gets the absolute max roll, it can kill us, but I think that's a risk worth taking. Because we'll Earthquake them back and kill them, so that's good. And if they have any defensive investment, like defense EVs, like your bulky attacker Metagross, then that Meteor Mash will not kill if it's unboosted. So that's good to know. Yeah, that's essentially the idea for Golem. Yes, having less HP investment means that we're not taking special attacks very well, but like, I don't know, if you can find an Ice Beam that's worth taking on Golem, and that you need that extra HP for, then okay, you then restructure the set again so you can have more HP investment, I guess, but I don't think that it's generally that worth thinking about Golem on the specially defensive side, because a lot of special attackers are going to have a move that straight up OHKOs Golem. Like, maybe HP Ice Zapdos, you can get away with that, or like another HP Ice Electric type. But again, are you going to risk taking a Hidden Power Grass from them? I don't think so. So let's get into the team here. So this is V5 Sneaky Golem. So V5 is the structure that the other 5 Pokemon on this team that are not Golem make up. So this is a really solid structure, and it can support almost any 6th Pokemon. So basically the idea with this team is that we're going to play V5. They're going to assume that we're going to have something that's more commonly the 6th, like, say, Tyranitar or Suicune, Registeel. If you've seen my Registeel video, this is basically the same team structure. It's just with Registeel over Golem, and we're leading the Registeel. We do have some slightly different sets on these Pokemon, but in essence, it's the same type of team. Golem is not the worst possible 6 that you could have, because it helps versus Curslax, who's slightly problematic for this team. But in all honesty, if you slot Metagross in over Golem, that's going to be better like 90% of the time. But then we don't get a funny video out of it, so like, forget that. And also, this is a little bit of an experiment as well, to see how good this V5 structure is, that we could use basically a crap tier Pokemon like Golem, and still win games with it. This team does not have a win condition. Like, we don't have Calm Mind, Blissey, and none of these other Pokemon really have any sort of boosting. So we're going to have to play a war of attrition by maintaining our spikes advantage. I think this is okay, because this is like, I would consider this like a semi-stall type of team, where we're essentially just going to bleed resources out of our opponents and get Toxic and get spikes damage and kind of rely on that to win the game. Dugtrio's going to eliminate a key threat here or there. Golem's going to blow up on something. And then the rest of the team can kind of just wall for all eternity. Maybe not exactly, but that's the sort of game plan anyway. Our Claydol set is going to be Refresh Rapid Spin, and this is designed to PP stall opposing Scarm. We have to be cognizant of spin blockers, particularly like Gengar, if we're going to do this. But the good thing about Claydol is that you have a super effective stab psychic to usually 2-hit KO the Gengar, so that's not the worst thing in the world. But you could run Shadow Ball instead if Misdreavus is giving you problems. I know that when I've been laddering, there have been a few people trying Misdreavus teams, and it's so annoying to not have any move to hit the Misdreavus, really. So, you could do that. And I think that Shadow Ball is it's a little bit more sustainable on this Claydol set because you have Refresh. So if Gengar burns you, you can just refresh that away and then go for the Shadow Ball. Although I will say that, generally speaking, Claydol is going to lose initiative if it gets burned on switch. You're going to go for Refresh, they're going to go for Ice Punch, you're going to be a little less than half. You're going to have to switch the Claydol out, you're probably not even getting your Shadow Ball off. And even if you do, you usually are not going to kill Gengar straight up with Shadow Ball, so keep that in mind. But if you do happen to use Shadow Ball on Claydol, of course, make sure that you restructure the EVs a little bit so that you don't have a bunch of investment in special attack where it doesn't matter. So, yeah. Golem, basically its goal is going to be to get in versus something slow and then threaten a massive EQ or Earthquake, or it could boom to eliminate a key target. So that's essentially what we're getting at here. The best target to boom into would probably be a Snorlax. Suicune could be a good one to hit as well, because this team, it's not, I wouldn't say it's extremely bad into Suicune, but you're going to have to play a slightly awkward game. I want to note as well, we have Screech on Dugtrio. You might think that that doesn't make a lot of sense, but the idea is that if we're up against a last mon Suicune, that Screech Dugtrios are really our only way to break it. We lower its defense enough, then we'll go to Blissey, force it to go for rest again, then Dugtrio can come back in and finish off the Suicune because it now has -2 defense. So, yeah, that's the idea. We're going to give shout-outs to Kurtz for building the base of this team. This is essentially his standard or his sample team set, but with Golem instead of Tyranitar, and of course we're not leading Golem because then it's not sneaky, so we're just leading Milotic. There may be other leads that could work for this team. You could lead Blissey, you could lead Scarm, you could lead Doug, but I think Milotic is good enough. I mean, you have a pretty solid switch into Zapdos with Blissey, I guess, or Claydol. I guess maybe that could be a little bit problematic, because if they go for, say, like substitute Baton Pass, that could be annoying, but this team is decently sturdy. Even if you get the first turn wrong, or you have a bad matchup on the first turn, you can still probably play around it if you're smart. So I think that this is fine, but of course, change up your leads if you want to. And we're gonna switch the music, we're gonna switch the scene, and here we go. This is from Pokemon Stadium. I don't really know that much about Pokemon Stadium because it was before my time, but I know the announcer is pretty cool, so maybe I'll do a little announcer impression as we get on with this video. So lead Milotic versus Armaldo. Armaldo does not want to see that. Instead, they're going to switch to Fortress, which is a very strange team already. I'm going to just Surf, take my chip onto the Fortress, and they're going to switch to Jirachi, who takes that Surf pretty well. But I'm going to be aggressive and switch to the Doug Trio. Jirachi gets its Wish Up, but Doug Trio is going to hit with a devastating Earthquake. Sorry, I'm a fake fan. I don't really know what does the announcer say in this scenario. That was brutal. I don't think we could say taken down from the word go, because we didn't win on turn 1, but alright, whatever. I'm going to stop being a fake fan for a moment. Against this Gyarados, I'm going to switch to Scarm, so there's a possibility that this is a Taunt Gyara. And anticipating that, I'm going to go for Drill Peck. Against Taunt Gyara, especially if it doesn't have Hidden Power Rock, Skarmory will just beat it one-on-one if you go for Drill Peck on the first turn. This also means that I catch the Fortress coming in, and I can threaten to kill it here. I'm actually going to Spike, though, as it goes for Boom. That's probably fine. I'm willing to take that damage in order to get the Spike up. I can simply go to Claydol against Jolteon. I have a plus Spadef nature, so I don't mind taking an HP Ice if it goes for that. Gengar's in, which is fine by me because I can go for a Psychic and put it low, but they go for Ice Punch and get the Freeze. So that's not good. I can go to Blissey, though, who shouldn't wall the Gengar at this stage. I do go for Thunder Wave because as long as they're not Taunt Gengar, it's going to land on something, and getting it on Gyarados is really nice. I say well played there. That's pretty toxic by me, I'm not going to lie. And I think I am pretty toxic throughout some of these games. Maybe it's the Clash Royale player in me coming out, because I definitely would be saying well played when people would make some bad plays in Clash Royale. But, alright. I don't mean any offense by it. It's more a reflection on me than it is of my opponent. So if you're watching this second Moto 381 or anybody else who's in this video, and I say something not nice in the chat, I'm sorry. But in any case, Skarm's going to come in against this Gyarados, and I'm just going to Drill Peck it out. It's really nice to have these extra turns with the yellow magic there. This is going to Dragon Dance again. Doesn't really matter because I'm still going to be faster, and that Hidden Power Flying is going to do a solid 30%. I'm just going to take my kill with the Drill Peck. One thing to note about the Skarmory is I don't have Protect on it, so it's going to be a little bit awkward getting HP back at some points in the game, but that's fine. I think if you position your Skarm pretty well, and this team has a lot of really good defensive pieces that you can pivot around, then the Skarm's fine without the Protect, I think. Armaldo's going to get paralyzed here. I'm going to go straight to Claydol, because if I can ever get it unfrozen, then I can get some really good value against the Armaldo, but alas, it doesn't happen. And now I reveal the sneaky Golem, who comes in, and Rock Slide is going to kill everything. Except this Jolteon's going to come in, and it's threatening to kill me with Hidden Power. So I'm going to switch to Dugtrio, who takes that Hidden Power and dies. I didn't think I needed Dugtrio to beat the paralyzed Armaldo, so that's fine by me to sack it there. Whereas Golem is going to be a little bit more useful in the Armaldo matchup. I will go to my Lodic on the Armaldo, who's going to Swords Dance, and this is a little bit scary, because if it has Rock Blast, it might be able to kill my Milotic if it gets enough hits. It does get a crit on that second one, but alas, only 2 hits. I know that feeling. Armaldo, it never gets more than 2 hits on that Rock Blast, I swear. Jolteon will come in and kill my Milotic, and I can go to Blissey, who is basically just going to 1v1 the Jolteon from here. Thunder Wave is going to basically neutralize the Jolteon. I am going to go to Skarm and get roared into Golem, and Golem is going to get the kill. And there you go. That's GG right there. And I say it, sneaky Golem right there. So the idea there was I go to Skarm. If you go for Thunderbolt with Jolteon and kill my Skarm, oh well. Golem comes in. It's faster than the paralyzed Jolteon. It gets the kill. But they kind of took the middleman out by roaring me into Golem. So that's pretty nice. Whoops. I should make sure to reset all my replays here so we're not spoiling. In any case, we're going into this game. Milotic versus Starmie, a very strange lead matchup. You almost never see that. But I do have Blissey to switch into. They go for Surf, which is kind of interesting. They're probably offensive Starmie with Surf, I would guess, rather than Hydro Pump. In any case, I can go for a Seismic Toss into whatever's switching in. I get a Tyranitar, who seems to be a higher attack and speed invested Tyranitar because it doesn't have the HP to take like 25% from Seismic Toss. That is good to know, that you should be checking damage like that to see sort of what set your opponent is. Seismic Toss is really good for revealing that because it does fixed damage. In any case, I will go to my Skarmory and start setting up my own spikes. Zapdos is in, threatens me out. I'm going to go to Blissey. They Baton Pass into Breloom. I thought I was going to get dugged there, but Breloom is arguably worse. I'm going to go to my Lodic and try to allow that to get sleep sacked, but I get crit by Sky Uppercut. Very nice. Very, very good for me. I'm going to go to Claydol to take the Mach Punch. And then I'm going to sleep sack the Skarmory now, which is not good. Skarmory is not a Pokemon you tend to want to sleep sack, but in this situation, I kind of don't have much of a choice because Claydol is my only real answer to beat this Breloom. I can't let it get sleep sacked. So I will sack the Milotic there. That means that Breloom can't do anything like set up a substitute or go for Focus Punch or anything like that. Now Claydol is in, and I can go for a Psychic to threaten the kill on Breloom. Unfortunately, we catch a Starmie instead, who seems to not have an item. So this is probably Mystic Water Starmie. I go to Dugtrio, sort of maybe hoping that they would go for a Rapid Spin there, but instead they go for Hydro Pump and they miss, which is really bad because I can get the kill with Dugtrio now. And that means that I still have my Dugtrio in order to trap and remove one of Breloom or Tyranitar. In any case, though, we do have Blissey, who's really good into the Zapdos. They crit my Blissey. Very not cool. We're going to call it even now. But Golem can come in, and it's outspeeding that Zapdos, threatening a big, fat Rock Slide. Skarmory comes in. For what reason, I don't know, but I get a fat Rock Slide on that as well. I am going to switch now because I assume that this Skarmory is just going to play for like a Protect chip healing shenanigans. I'm going to use it as an opportunity to get a Sleep Turn burned on my Skarmory. Now I'm going to go to Claydol. because I can spin these hazards away. And I'm assuming that the way that they're playing, especially because they revealed all their moves, they don't have Toxic, so I'm not that, not at all scared to go to Claydol here. I go for Earthquake, and I don't quite get the kill on Tyranitar, but that's fine because I am faster, because this is a no-speed Tyranitar. Breloom will come in. I do not die to a Sky Uppercut, I don't believe. So I will just go for Psychic, and that is going to leave Breloom in range to die to Sandstorm. Its Swords Dance is not going to do anything for it, and then I win the game. So very nice. I don't know what their last two Pokemon were, but I assume that Golem could have won the game outright from there, so that's pretty good. Next, we're up against Alice.Underworld. As we see Milotic versus Charizard. Charizard, a very uncommon lead, but I happen to be leading basically the best Pokemon that you possibly could into Charizard, so that's good. I guess Suicune might be a little bit better, but whatever, that's semantics. I get a Spike Down. My opponent switches to Zapdos, probably anticipating me to go to Milotic, so very nice from them. But I have Blissey, who should be pretty solid as they switch in. I am going to go for Thunder Wave to catch whatever the switch in is. It's going to be a Metagross who booms and kills my Skarmory. So that was actually a Choice Banded Metagross. And then they hit the timer. I guess they thought they were cooking or something. In any case, Blissey's going to come in on the Zapdos and get another free Thunder Wave onto the Snorlax. It's paying dividends already because I managed to dodge an attack, which means, like, so if say they went for return, which is most likely what they did, that means that my Golem is now going to live 2 Earthquakes. So that's actually pretty good for me. I don't know if it matters that much because I probably kill them before they get the second Earthquake off. But it would also mean I live a crit Earthquake. In any case, they're going to switch to Marowak on my Golem, take a solid 34%, and Swords Dance up. I sort of think that at least... Okay. I could have switched to Milotic here on the on the Swords Dance turn. That would have been really nice because I outspeed with Milotic and I can get this kill on Marowak. I don't think they would have known that I outsped with my Milotic because I am running a lot of speed on it. But in any case, that could have been a really good play. But my sort of thought was, if this Marowak goes straight up for Earthquake and it crits my Milotic, then I'm going to lose to Charizard, probably. I wasn't willing to risk that, and I figured that Golem has kind of done most of what it needs to do. So I'm just going to choose to stay in and sack the Golem. Now I can go to Dugtrio and kill this Marowak that guarantees that the Dugtrio is no longer an issue for me. As my opponent is going to go to Zapdos. They get their speed pass to Tyranitar. I freeze it, but it's Lumberry. And that is actually really big for me because I don't have a great switch in to a +2 speed Tyranitar. So I have to get the Thunder Wave off. And getting the Thunder Wave off there was really nice. And it was also really nice that I dodged that Rock Slide. Granted, so long as I didn't get flinched, I was probably fine. I would have taken the Rock Slide pretty okay anyway. And then this is going to allow me to go to Milotic to basically beat the Tyranitar with no fear of getting flinched. Zapdos would come in, Blissey can come back in, and I just basically chip out everything remaining here. So, pretty solid game. Again, maybe could have made some slightly different plays that would have been a little better for me, but I kind of stand by staying in with the Golem. Could have been really bad if I went to Milotic, got crit. It also kind of forced this Marowak to die because I was able to Dug Trap it when it was that low, which means I don't have to deal with Agility Pass to the Marowak later. So that simplified the game for me for sure. In any case, we're here against Report Poketubers. Very funny name. Every time I have the opportunity to feature this player, I think I will until they report me and I get banned. So we'll see. Milotic versus Blaziken. See, Milotic is cooking as a lead, doing really well. forces a switch to Sceptile, so I'm assuming that this is some cheesy, like, Hoenn starter trio team. Maybe, yeah, I think Swampert would be pretty likely here, but in any case. I'm going to go to Skarmory on Sceptile. Unless it has Thunder Punch, I take that pretty well, and I assume that because they're lead Blaziken, they probably don't have a great move to hit Skarm with the Sceptile. They go for a Thunder Punch with Blaziken, however, which is really nice because it gets that mid-ground between the switch to Milotic and Skarm, or staying in with Skarm. But I can simply just go for a Toxic, and getting a Toxic on Sceptile is basically like rats for Sceptile. I can go to Skarm. Yes, it can Leech Seed me, and it's going to get some chip healing, but it's ultimately going to die to the Toxic if it stays in. I can just use this as an opportunity to get the second Spike. Instead, actually, I go for Drill Peck, maybe trying to stop that Blaziken from being able to switch in. I will aggressively go to the Dugtrio as this Tyranitar goes for a Dragon Dance. I don't get the kill on it, and it's able to get to +2, which is not good. I'm going to sack the Dugtrio at this stage, and then allow the Skarmory to come in. They go for Taunt as I go for Drill Peck. And yeah, no, I mean, I don't really understand the taunt play per se. I would think the Rock Slide would make some more sense. I even actually just explained this in the chat. Probably didn't need to explain. This guy's at what, 1500? He knows. In any case, maybe there was an argument I could have went to Skarm there on this Tyranitar, which would have allowed me to keep my Dugtrio for later in this game. It would have been really, really nice. But I guess I was a little bit afraid that there's a possibility that they go for Rock Slide. Probably not, because that would be a thrower play into my Dugtrio staying in. Or if they go for another Dragon Dance, get the +3. As I switch to Skarm to try to save the Dugtrio. In any case, I think that sacking Dugtrio is probably okay. I can probably still win the game. I'd rather risk Dugtrio than Skarm. In any case, it was really fortunate that my Skarm was able to get out of that with no repercussions. In any case, what did they do here? Let's go back to this kill here. They're going to go hard to Jirachi here, right? No, they go to Sceptile. For what reason? I have no earthly idea. As they double to Jirachi on my Drill Peck. Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. They just took Spikes damage for no reason. In any case, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to switch to the Golem, who takes a Body Slam pretty well. I'll go for Earthquake as they hard switch to Flygon. Not great for me. And then they double back to Blaziken, so very well played by them. But I have Claydol, who should take Blaziken's hits pretty easily. I will go for Earthquake as they reveal Gyarados last. So this is like a halfway. It was like almost a Superman team, and then they sabotaged it by putting Blaziken and Sceptile on instead of like two usable Pokemon. But okay. I do get paralyzed on my Skarm, not good. We'll have to go to Milotic against this Blaziken. I should not die to any of Blaziken's moves unless it crits, so I can just get a free recover here. They go to Sceptile, not great, but I still have my whole Skarmory to switch into. Also not great that I'm paralyzed here, but I can start stacking my Spikes, which I think is probably the right play here. Should have been stacking my Spikes earlier, frankly, but it's going to be really good to pressure this Jirachi. I can go to Golem here, take a Fire Punch, don't get burned, that's really good, and then anticipating that they want to switch to Flygon, I'm going to blow up. They protect. So, yeah, real good value out of that Golem there. In any case, I can go to Blissey, who can get a Thunder Wave off on this Jirachi, and that's going to give me a little bit of reprieve, because this Jirachi is going to have to stay in for a lot of turns. It needs 2 turns to heal itself, the Wish and the Protect. So I can simply fish for some para hacks and win the game from there. My opponent is going to go hard to Blaziken to heal it up, which is fine, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter because Blaziken's pretty frail. It's going to die to a lot of the remaining moves that I have, so that's okay. Sceptile's going to come in, get a Leech Seed off on my Skarmory. Okay, whatever. Don't really care. Goes for Hidden Power, presumably Ice, and then dies. Alright, fair enough. Now I can go to Claydol against this Flygon. I don't care if it has, Toxic, because I have Refresh. It is, in fact, going to reveal Substitute and a really strong Hidden Power Bug, so I assume that this is an offensive Flygon. In any case, Milotic is going to take that really well. Even a crit, it's not doing that much to me. And I can simply just go for Surf. They're going to opt to sack Blaziken here. I don't know if that was necessarily the right play. I mean, Gyarados was probably better as a switch. Because you could do this, you could have done this play and kept your Blaziken. In any case, I am going to go to Claydol versus this Jirachi, use it as an opportunity to get some healing. I'm threatening an Earthquake. I go for it as they go to Gyarados, which is not great. But I think I'm decently safe versus Gyarados, because there's just no chance that this is going to be Thunder Wave plus Taunt Gyarados. And if it is, then, like, what is it, Dragon Dance and then HP Flying? If that's its whole set, then that's a very strange set, and I could probably still beat it with Claydol or Skarmory. But in any case, this Gyarados cannot come in versus Milotic, because if it gets Toxic, then he lost his only win condition. I am going to go for the Toxic, anticipating potentially a switch to Gyarados or Flygon. Instead, the Jirachi is going to stay in and Protect, which is fine. My Toxic PP is a little bit less valuable than my Surf PP anyway, so that's okay with me. I can just go for Seismic Tosses here. This Jirachi might get full parried out of existence, and if that's the case, then we're in a great spot. They're going to go for Body Slam there, which is a little bit tenuous, because, again, if the Parahacks go my way, like, you want that Wish Up. In any case, I am going to switch to Skarmory as this Jirachi goes for another Body Slam. There is an opportunity for me to try to play to basically run this Jirachi out of moves by just switching back and forth. I hope it doesn't come to that, because that's usually not a great place to be in. But, okay. I am just going to keep surfing into this Jirachi. Maybe I get a crit. I do. They go for Fire Punch, which, you know, is not going to do much of anything. They're fully parried on the turn they go for Protect. Now they're going to need to hit another Protect. That's fine. And then they're going to need to hit a Wish here. They do. They're going to need to hit this Protect. And they do. Alright, so basically, I got all excited for nothing. In any case, we're down to 13 Surfs, not great. I'm going to go to Blissey, who's going to get burned by this Fire Punch. It's actually not so bad, because I'd rather be burned than paralyzed, at least at this stage of the game. Gyarados is going to come in. It's going to Dragon Dance, but I'm going to use this turn to get a Thunder Wave off on the Gyarados. Maybe not the best play, actually, because Toxic would have been better, but it does allow me to use Pokemon such as as Claydol to threaten it. I do get crit there, which is very unfortunate, as I get finished off by the HP Flying. But now I go Claydol, I'm threatening to Boom, they're going to go to Jirachi, and I'm going to cover that by going for Psychic. So, the idea being that if they stay in, I can get some good chip on the Gyarados. I probably don't die to HP Flying, and that's fine. If they switch to Flygon, Psychic is my best click, and if they switch to Jirachi, at the very least I didn't boom my entire Claydol. They're going to Protect here as I go for Earthquake. And now, I think it's pretty obvious that I'd be going for another Earthquake into this Jirachi, so I'm actually going to stay in with the Claydol and go for Psychic to catch the Flygon on switch. They tried to predict me to switch out, as I opt to not. And now this Flygon is in dead to psychic range, so that's really good for me. I am going to switch to Milotic to preserve a little bit of HP on my Claydol. And yeah, now this Flygon's in a really bad spot, because pretty much any of my moves is going to kill it. Jirachi switches into Milotic, which is really not good for the Jirachi because it's so low. It had to get that Protect there. And even if it did, it would have had to get Wish and Protect after that. So that was actually very fortunate for me. I can go to Blissey against this Gyarados right now, and I'm just going to Seismic Toss into it. I should live 1. Very good. Unless it had, like, Double Edge, but if it had Double Edge, it would have taken so much damage there. They're going to switch the Flygon in on Seismic Toss and die, which I don't know what that play was all about. In any case, maybe they were trying to catch my Claydol switch in, but I was never switching to Claydol there. I'm simply just going to keep Seismic Tossing until this Gyarados is dead, and they're going to disconnect and not even very honorably forfeit the game. So report Poketubers, get wrecked. Golem did nothing that game, by the way. Golem sucks. I hate to say it, but maybe it'll do something this game. Yeah, not a great switch for me, as this Heracross is going to substitute up in front of my Skarm. I am going to roar it out. I'm going to take a fat Focus Punch for my troubles, which is not good. And then a Swampert. So I'm going to go to Milotic. That Hydro Pump, to me, probably communicates that this is an offensive Swampert, and this team structure kind of seems like it would be. I'm going to stay in with my Milotic against the Metagross to get some Surf damage off. It's going to boom. That's not good. I get Skarmory in against Zapdos. That's not good, but I can go to Claydol. And the effect of that was essentially that I get some healing on there. That's pretty good. I'm going to pivot to Claydol, then to Blissey. Doesn't really, like, I probably could have just went straight to Blissey, but I guess that means I take a little bit less damage on the Blissey because Thunderbolt would have done some more. I get crit with that Mega Horn, but that's kind of good to know that that damage was not that high, because that's not Guts. If it was Guts, I would have died to a crit, I think. So, I guess fortunate in a certain sense. But I can go back to Skarmory here, who's going to take a solid 16% from Mega Horn. That might not even be Adamant. That might be a Jolly Heracross, in which case, Swarm Jolly Heracross, there's no better Heracross to get that sort of damage off on. I can't just keep going back to Skarmory. If you ever get full parried on Heracross, then Skarmory's net gaining HP pretty much. Because you're not going to be able to stay in. You don't want to take a Drill Peck. In any case, I do manage to get a second layer of spikes up, which is going to mitigate some of the progress that this Heracross is getting. And they reveal Salamence, so I don't want to take a Fire Blast, so I'm going to switch to my Golem. It takes a solid 33%. This seems actually to be a physical Salamence, I think, with that kind of damage. Don't know, didn't calc it. I was thinking about going for Rock Slide here. It would have covered a Zapdos switch, although, granted, why would you switch to Zapdos there? But I was thinking, okay, I maybe get a kill on Salamence for going for Rock Slide, but then Swampert comes in, which is not good. I'll have to switch to, like, Blissey. If I switch into a Focus Punch or a Earthquake, that's really bad. And I'd rather not miss. If I miss against the Salamence, then this Golem gets net nothing out of the game, so I'm just going to go for Explosion. I managed to get that Salamence kill. I'll go to Blissey as they go to Heracross, which is fine. I'm going to go to Claydol rather than Skarmory in this case, because I figured that they would probably go for a fighting move, and Claydol's obviously going to take it a lot better. They're going to also just Baton Pass to the Heracross here. I'm going to anticipate them once again to go for Focus Punch, but they actually go for a Rock Slide. That's fine. I'll go for a Psychic into the Heracross, which puts it pretty low. I'm going to die for my troubles. Not the worst case scenario, because that special defense drop now means that Blissey's Ice Beam is going to kill. I do get a crit, doesn't matter because there was a Spadef drop, but I guess like I was going to need one of the two of those things. I ended up getting both. Had that not been the case, I would have had to go to Skarmory. They'd probably go to Zapdos. I probably would... Like, some gaming would have had to occur on my part, but then they revealed Tyranitar here. I'm going to go hard Dugtrio. That's the only way that I'm not going to just straight up lose this game here. I get an Earthquake off, and I get the kill. Very, very good. If it was bulky DD Tyranitar, then there was a chance that I could have lived that, in which case I probably needed to get a third layer up sooner in the game. But it wasn't, so never punish. We don't have to learn from our mistakes. And this is going to curse. So I thought it was offensive pert, but it's actually a curse pert, which is not great. But Skarmory is fine because Earthquake is going to do nothing to us, and we can get our Toxic off. I'm going to go for Drill Peck to just get a little bit more chip damage on the Swampert, and now I can go to Blissey, who should take a Earthquake decently well. I can go for Ice Beam to get some damage. Earthquake, it is doing more than half, but Swampert is slower, and it's on a timer from Toxic, so I can just Soft Boil out. They're going to need to get a crit here to win the game, and they throw by going for Curse. Yeah, that was... I don't know what the idea was there, going for another Curse. Maybe they thought I would go to Dugtrio, but, like, okay, so what? Maybe going to Dugtrio there could have been an idea to mitigate crit chances, but as it stands, they would have had to crit my Blissey with an Earthquake, so yeah, and that curse doesn't even really, like, save the game. Like, I go to Dugtrio, alright, you're trapped, maybe you live an Earthquake or whatever from my Dugtrio, and then you get the kill, but then you're dead to Toxic, and then it's Blissey versus Zapdos, so you were going to forfeit in that situation anyway, so... No, okay, so I guess technically I made a play that potentially could have lost me the game, but my opponent made a play that certainly lost them the game, so... Alright, fair enough. Alright, last game here. Milotic versus Tyranitar. Very good for us. We're going to surf into the Jirachi. We do a decent amount of damage, and it reveals no item, so I was thinking that this is probably gotta be some sort of mixed Rachi going for, like a Thunder or something. So I'm gonna go to Dugtrio, and I take a Body Slam for 99%. But I don't get parried, so thank God for that. I can eliminate this Jirachi. That could have been really bad. I don't think that that's Choice Banded Jirachi. If it was, it probably would have killed my Dugtrio. So I assume that it was, like, again, a Lumberry mixed Rachi or something like that. I am just going to stay in versus the Celebi and get a nice spike up as it goes for Giga Drain. They're going to go to Nidoking. Very strange. I'm going to get a second spike up, though. Anticipating that they might have a Flamethrower or a Fire Blast, I'm going to go to Milotic. As they go for Ice Beam and they freeze my Milotic. Alright, really well played. That makes a lot of sense to go for Ice Beam in that situation rather than a move that actually hits Skarmory when it's threatening third layer. It's not even like you're hitting Dugtrio for anything. And then you go for Earthquake against my Marvel Scale Frozen Milotic. Alright, real well played here, buddy. You're pissing me off, as you can tell. I am going to go to Claydol, who's going to Psychic. I don't know, actually, I don't know why I Psychic there. Earthquake would have been probably better. Maybe I was anticipating that they had something that could switch in to an Earthquake in the back. I don't know. In any case, I get some chip on Suicune, who's going to Surf Crit my Claydol. Awesome. Very, very cool. I go to Dugtrio here. It doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly. Like, why did I take this Earthquake damage? Okay. I'm tilted, as you could probably tell. I'm going to go for a Seismic Toss, which puts this Suicune at 76%. It has no turns burnt. It's going to switch out, which I think is a super duper major throw. We're going to see why I think that. In any case, I reveal my sneaky Golem, but against a Celebi, I can't stay in versus bat, so that's, you know, it's really bad. I'm going to Spike as they get a Leech Seed up here. And then we'll see what they do. They switch hard to Tyranitar as I go hard to Blissey. Not great for me. I'm going to go to Milotic as they go for Crunch. So, okay, this is not a physical Tyranitar, which means that Blissey's actually not that bad into it. But Crunch means usually Pursuit and Fire Blast as moves here. So I'm hatching a sort of, or scheming a sort of plan here. I do stay in just in case I get the Thaw and I get Surf damage off, which would be really good. But they reveal HP Grass, and now I'm almost certain that they're going to have Fire Blast as the last move. So I'm going to pivot back to Milotic, take the Fire Blast, and get thawed out. So there you go, Vidala. Try to hack me out of the game, why don't you? In any case, I can recover. Even a crit wouldn't have killed, but it might have killed with Sandstorm damage, so that's kind of rough. But, I mean, come on. This guy was hacking me all game. It's actually not true. I mean, I think like one or two lucky things happened for him. But in any case, I do manage to get my Toxic off, and I can just recover loop this Tyranitar. It's going for the Crunch Spadef drop. Eventually gets it there. But that's fine, because I can switch to Skarmory, and I don't think they have the balls to go for a Fire Blast there, so that's fine by me. Against this Celebi, I'm going to go for a Drill Peck to secure some damage on it. Now it's in range to die to a Drill Peck, potentially, if I get the roll. So they're actually going to switch. I don't know. I'm guessing that they don't have Recover as their last move. Makes sense. It probably... I don't know what their last move would be, actually. Substitute, maybe? I don't know. In any case, they're going to set the Sun with their Charizard here. That's fine by me, because I'm going to go for a Thunder Wave here. Anticipating that they're going to want to go for Fire Blast, and they don't have... they probably don't have Focus Punch, because Fire Blast Focus Punch coverage is nothing. And let's talk about this sequence here. So I know I'm going to live, and I get a Thunder Wave off on the Charizard. Why do I go for Thunder Wave here? Well, the idea is that if I Thunder Wave this, I'm going to outspeed it on the next turn, so I can get my Soft Boiled off this turn. And now I'm playing for Paralysis or a Fire Blast miss. And if I ever get one of those, this Charizard is dead. And that's why this is really good, because this Charizard has no leftovers. If it had leftovers, that play wouldn't have been as consistent, because I would have it probably would have healed out of Seismic Toss range, in which case I would need to get 2 full paras or misses. But because it didn't have, because it did not have a good item, it probably had Pitaya Berry, but I wasn't born yesterday. All right, I'm gonna play around the Pitaya Berry. So in any case, Nidoking is gonna come in here. I'm gonna go to my Milotic, who takes an Earthquake. It's not great. I'm gonna sack the Milotic here, and it reveals Thunderbolt, so all the more reason to click Ice Beam into freaking Skarmory. Alright, whatever. I'm gonna go Golem. It's gonna take an Ice Beam well enough, and I can just get an Earthquake kill. A switch to Celebi, Earthquake would have killed it on switch. It would have killed Tyranitar and Suicune. Unless it's Sleep Talk Suicune, then Golem would beat that 1v1 as well, so... Golem is actually well positioned to win this endgame here. I'm going to go for Roar as they switch into Tyranitar. Nice. They set up Sand to screw their own Suicune over. I Roar. Celebi's in. It's dead. Very nice. Suicune comes in one more time. I can just simply Roar this out, and now it's dead to Sandstorm. So, yeah, no. Like, this team needs some workshopping. Like, it's actually really bad into Sand, which is hilarious because you have lead Tyranitar. So, yeah. In any case, I can go to Golem here. this is actually not a Pursuit Tar. It's a special Tar with Crunch. I bait this into going for HP Grass as I go to Blissey. Does not really matter. But because it dives to Toxic, in fact, the Suicune can come in and not take the Sandstorm damage, which allows it to rest up, but that's fine because I can go to Golem. And I will kill the Suicune with a Boom. And there you go, Sneaky Golem. It does it. It does it. I say GG, but my opponent doesn't, so, like, come on now. In any case, that was Golem. This is a little bit more of an experiment. Yeah, I'm not listening to that again, alright? I got tired of the Pokemon Stadium music, alright? In any case. That's, I swear to God, if you should comment that again. Yeah, that was Golem. This was more of an experiment to see how well V5 works with a not so good Pokemon. I think Golem is not the most terrible Pokemon to slot into V5. I definitely think Metagross is better, but like it's kind of cool that you can get some use out of a Pokemon like Golem using a structure like this. So that's kind of neat. This play here with the Suicune, you could say, what if the Suicune went for Surf and killed my Golem? Okay, great. Then it dies to Sandstorm, as I have last one on Blissey. So, yeah, don't comment that. I don't think anybody would have. You guys are all smarter than that, but in any case, I need to stop saying that. So that was Golem. Maybe we'll see some sneaky Golems on ladder at some point from all of you, but I will say that Golem is certainly not a great Pokemon. Doesn't slot into most teams, honestly, and even teams that it could slot into, there are better picks. So do not have no illusions that I think that Golem actually is viable in this tier, but I hope we all learned something about how good V5 is and how interesting it is to have something like Golem on it. So, yep, no more stalling. That's the end of the video. We'll see you for the next one.